In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this super cool iridescent cloth displacement as you see on screen right now. We're going to build this completely in Blender for the base of everything, and then we're going to pull it into Photoshop and do some post-processing on it. Let's get started. So here's the blank canvas in Blender, and if you're used to Blender at all, it starts out with this, and this is a pretty common action. We're just going to delete everything. We're going to hit Shift A. We're going to add a mesh plane. I'm going to zoom into it. I'm going to hit tab to go to edit mode. I'm going to right click and hit subdivide. We're going to subdivide. We're going to do 40 cuts. Then we're going to tab back into object mode. I'm going to go to the modifiers. I'm going to click add modifier, and I'm going to go into displace under the deform modifiers. This isn't really going to do anything. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to click strength, and we're going to set it to 0.1. So then you don't really see anything happening. It's because we're not applying a texture to the displacement. So we're going to click new. It's going to create a new texture. We're going to click this little button here to open up the texture preferences. And then under type, we're going to go down to marble. And now you can see something starting to happen. In the preview window, you'll see a preview of what the texture pattern looks like. And you can see it's kind of roughly on our shape here, but it doesn't look great. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down into here, and we're going to turn up the size. And then we're going to turn down the depth to 0. We're going to turn up the turbulence, and then we're just going to adjust the size a little bit more. And you'll start to notice that this shape in the preview window is starting to look a lot like the effect we're trying to achieve. And this is exactly what we want. But you'll notice that our object still, well, to be honest, it looks very low res and just looks horrible. We could never use this. Luckily, Blender has a brilliant modifier that you can add. And we're going to add subdivision surface. And for this, I've found settings 3 or settings 4, if you can handle it, are the best. And that's just going to smooth it right out. And as you can see, we have our cloth texture that just looks so silky. It looks so good. And we're going to be using this as the example. So the next step is we're going to go into our materials here. We're going to add a new material. And I know this is an iridescent look, but we're not actually creating a true iridescent shader. So we don't need to do any complex node editing. I'll save that for a future video. I've actually built an iridescent shader that I've used in quite a few social media posts. You can follow my Instagram at Budowski. That's at BUDAWSKI. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into base color. You're just going to select a kind of a low gray here, almost black. And I'm just going to go into my viewport shading here. I'm not going to go to rendered view, but I'm just going to go to this view and set my base color to be even darker than that. And then you're going to turn specular all the way down, turn metallic all the way up, and then roughness, you're going to set that to 0.2, something like that. So now, as you can see, we're starting to get the look, a little bit of the look that we're going for. We're going to select in our viewport shading here, we're going to turn on scene lights and turn on scene world. This is going to look really bad right here. That's totally fine, don't worry about it. You're going to go Shift A, and we're going to add some lights now. So you're going to add a spotlight. And once you have the spotlight selected, you can just scale it up. And now we're starting to see the light appearing here. I'm going to set the power to 2500. I'm going to set the blend all the way up to 1. And I'm going to set the size to just be, I'm just going to set that to 100 because I want it to be sure to cover the whole thing. Now I'm just going to move it out. I'm going to click this little, this angle thing, this little selector there. I'm just going to angle it towards that side of the shape. Now you can start to see there's some light being added, and if I change the color of this light, you'll start to notice I get a really cool effect. So I'm going to choose this blue here. I love the blue color. I think blue and like an orangey yellow go really well together, so we're going to use those kind of colors in this project. So now I'm going to select my light. I'm going to do Shift D. I'm going to right click just to set it back to the old settings of the previous light. And then I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. I'm just going to reposition it, re-angle it, And this is where you can get creative. You can really just angle this light to be wherever you want. You can change the positions, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to change the color to be kind of this like this orangey yellow, and I'm really liking how that's looking. I think it looks super cool so far. I'm actually just going to add one more light. I'm actually going to take these, I'm going to rotate them like that, and then I'm going to just duplicate this here. I'm going to add one more light kind of going off this way. I'm going to move it down a little bit, and then we're just going to set this. Let's see what color is going to look cool. You know, I think like a pink like that could look super sweet. So I'm really happy with these colors. I think it's looking awesome. This is exactly the type of effect that we're wanting to go for. Now what you can do is you can select your plane again, go back into your modifiers and edit the material. And now what I can do is I can just go in here and I can just edit this material all I want. Say you want it to get more complex, you can start editing the size and the turbulence. If I want this to be, you know, crazy, I can do that. You can mess around with different types of textures. But yeah, I'm just gonna set this, I think 1.5 should be 1.25. Yeah, I think I really do like this. So I really like how this is looking here. And what you can do, let's say you want to use these settings, but you want the pattern to look a little bit differently. So what you're going to do is you're just going to quickly add, we're going to add a new mesh, and you're just going to add really any kind of object. So we can add an empty, just a plain axis here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select this. We're going to do texture coordinates object, and then we're going to select our empty object that we just created. And now you can see as we move, oops, I'm going to select our empty object that we just created. You can see as we move this object, here, I'll just switch out of this view. As we move this object, it's going to be moving the actual noise pattern that we created. So this way, by using this kind of technique, you can totally change the way that your render looks. You can create something new and unique every single time, and that's really fun. That's really cool. You can get some super unique and custom looks doing this way. So I think I really like this. Personally, I love getting some of these circular areas and the like more, I don't know, flattened out sections here, and then I like having the complex lines, the different contrast between the shapes as well as the colors. I think is really nice. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a camera. Going to go view, active camera. And so the settings that I like to use, I like to set it to 1080p by 1080p. So yeah, this is looking really sweet. What we can do is we can render out an image just to see how this looks. Alright, yeah, so this is looking really cool. Obviously the texture looks awesome, and this is just a super simple, done in Eevee. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go image, we're gonna go save, and we're gonna now just save this. I'm just gonna save this as render. So I'm gonna export this, and then I'm gonna open it up in Photoshop, and I'll show you guys what we're gonna do from there. Alright, so I've opened up our image here in Photoshop, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add an adjustment layer. I'm gonna add a curves, and we're just gonna adjust the curves a little bit. I know that you can do this in Blender in the compositing, and I do like to mess around with that, but I just find the Photoshop environment allows you to do more altogether, and because I'm adding other effects, it's just easier to do it this way. I personally think this kind of a little more intense metallic look looks pretty sweet. Colors are a little brighter. So now the thing that I always like to do is I like to add grain. because this looks awesome as is. This is a really cool render, but grain just elevates it to that next level, and I think it adds a stylistic thing that for me is just part of my style. So how I like to add grain is I like to go layer, new layer. This is a quick and dirty way. Name the layer grain, set the mode to overlay, and then you're going to get this fill with overlay neutral color. Essentially, a layer filled with 50% gray set to overlay is actually a transparent layer. You won't see the difference. Cool little effect, or cool little trick you can do in Photoshop. Then you go filter, blur gallery, and I just click field blur, and then under grain you're going to have grain checked here under the noise, and you're just going to drag that amount all the way up. And now when I scale in, you can see the nice grain that gets added. So my size is set to 25%, roughness is at 50, colors at 0 always, and my highlights are at 100%. And it just adds this little bit of grain that I think looks really sweet. You could turn the scale down if you want, a little more fine. I'm going to turn the roughness down, and you can really just fine tune it. But here, to me that just looks so awesome. I love that little grainy effect. It just makes it look more like a real photograph, which to me is super sweet. Then we're gonna hit OK, and so now you can toggle the grain on and off to see how it looks before and after. I'll give you a close up here. So this is before and after. So now let's say you render this and then you say, oh man, you know, I don't know if I actually like the colors that I did. Well, that's a very easy fix. What you're gonna do is you're gonna add a new adjustment layer. You're gonna add hue saturation. I'm just gonna drag it under the grain. It doesn't really make a difference. And then let's say I wanna change this yellow. What you're gonna do is you're gonna select this little hand here. And you're gonna click on the yellow, and then you can change the hue. You can totally shift your colors to be, let's say I wanted it to be all pink. Well, this is what I had before, and I just shifted the hue to that. Let's say I want to select this cyan here, change the color of that to be a deeper blue. You know, that's looking pretty cool. Let's say I wanted it to be total black. That also looks pretty sweet. So there's different effects that you can do. So you can actually go back and totally change the colors of your render using the hue saturation. The other way that you can do this is you can use a gradient map. So you're going to add a gradient map adjustment layer. I'm going to get rid of this hue saturation. And in gradient map, what this does is it converts your image to black and white, and then you can add different steps to bring out different colors. So there's some presets built in here. Let's say we go greens. You know, we can add, there are some different presets in here. None of these really look like how we want this to look. So I'm just gonna go back to the basic one here. So I'm gonna do black to white. Then I'm gonna add another step in here, and it's gonna be a red. Bump up the, well, actually I'll leave that where it was. Then I'll click in, I'll add another step. Let's say I want to make this blue. So you can just mess around with these steps to get the effect that you like. So yeah, you can just mess around with these things, get crazy different colors, and just really play with it until you get something that looks really awesome. Alright, sweet, so I messed around with it. I added this gradient map here. I think these colors look super cool for this render that we made. And yeah, I think this is good to export. So yeah, I just want to say thank you all for joining me in this tutorial video. It's the first video back in, I believe, 5 or 6 years or something like that. Hope you all enjoyed. Leave a comment below if you did, and feel free to check out the Patreon again for all the project files for this, or you can hit the Gumroad link and I'll give you all the project files for that as well. So yeah, thanks for joining, and I'll see you in the next video.